Welcome to HCC Wisdom Hunters, where we're biblically based and vision driven. I'm your host this morning for a brief 5 minutes on the topic of grace. My name is Pastor Isaac Harmon, and I hope maybe you're driving somewhere, you're doing laundry, cleaning the house, whatever, but hopefully you can turn it on for a brief 5 minutes where we're going to just talk about grace. Oftentimes, we look at grace and we hear messages about how it's God's gift and it's an unmerited favor. We don't deserve it. And all that is correct. And there's multiple scriptures to support that. But when I looked into grace in preparation to our Family Day service, we focused on grace. And I got to see some things I never saw before. And one of those things is not only is grace freely given, but I saw how grace empowers people for service. Grace empowers people for service. And we turn to a great example. His name is Paul, and he wrote a letter to a church in the area called Corinth. And this church in Corinth had some issues going on, and people were doing this and that, and they apparently wasn't walking in the knowledge of grace and stuff. So Paul had to emphasize this grace. But let's turn our attention to 1 Corinthians 3:10. 1 Corinthians 3:10, it says, Paul's telling the church, by the grace God has given me, I laid a foundation as a wise builder, and someone else is building on it. But each one should build with care. What is Paul saying here? It starts with grace. Your ministry starts with grace. Your church attendance starts with grace. Every time we get into prayer, when you pray in the mornings or in the afternoons or at night, it starts with grace. When we do things for people, it starts with grace. It's the foundation to everything that we do. Paul says, I've laid this foundation in grace. I've walked in this grace. I've built with grace. And there are going to come people after we are dead and gone that's going to build upon the things that we've started. Like we're building upon what Paul started. Not only does Paul say that, but let's turn our attentions to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 10, where it reminds us Paul was a killer of Christians before he became saved, before grace came into his life. He held the coats of those who were throwing the stones. He was a co-conspirator with those who murdered Christians. And so Jesus reveals himself to Paul, and Paul has a miraculous turnaround in his life. Grace comes into his life, and this is what he says. But by the grace of God, I am what I am. And his grace to me was not without effect. No, I worked harder than all of them, yet not I, but the grace of God that was within me. You see, grace is the motivator to your actions. Paul says the grace that Jesus gave him was not without effect. It had the effect it needed to. Is grace affecting your life to where you're moving forward for God? Is your grace that God put into your life, the unmerited favor, the gift that you didn't deserve? We're nearing Christmas time, and we're going to give gifts to people, but let us never forget that gift of grace. And it's that grace that's going to motivate us to action. It's that grace that's going to motivate us to prayer, to church attendance, to spreading the love of God in this time of need. Thank you for tuning in. I just wanted to give you that little bit. I hope and pray that you can listen to this and repeat it and share it with a friend. Have a blessed day.